Sam, we're about to start. Everybody on the board ready to go? Okay, Pat,
Yes, sir.
Sam? Scott, ready? Okay, I will call the January 29th, 2018 Select Board meeting to order and invite you to rise and join me in Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's Select Board meeting, and just remind you, if you have one of these, if you could turn it off or put it to silence, that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. And if you hadn't signed in, I think everybody has, but if you haven't, if you could make sure you sign in so that we have that for the minutes, we would appreciate that as well. Okay, so we'll go on to item 2, which is agenda additions and changes. Greg, I see we do have a few things here.
A few things. In reverse order, we have a community outreach plan that can go on consent agenda as 7K. 2 sets of questions and answer sheets, one about the fiscal 19 budget, one about the conservation reserve fund. Sent these to you electronically over the over the weekend. Had a few more edits today, which I did track changes so you can see what's different from what you received over the weekend. 4 RFQs or applications to responding to the RFQs for a facilitator for the firearms discussion. Also sent to you over the weekend, but hard copies here. There's one from Lynn Dunton and Susanna Schweitzer, one from Jennifer Nauer, one from Anthony Scataglia, and one from Mark Wenberg, and I apologize to any of those names that I mispronounced. And so that'll be for 7F, also the consent agenda. Lastly, 5A, there's an updated budget sheet, and it's just a minor change. No changes to the final numbers, but on the first page, under the town manager section, total town manager percentage change of total, so the far right-hand column, the correct number is 0.42 that you see right there. It had been 0.82, just a incorrect formula in the spreadsheet. The numbers are exactly the same.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. So do we have a motion to add these various items to the consent agenda plus this latest budget update to 5A? Thank you, Mike.
Second.
Barry. Any further discussion of adding these to the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you all. Okay, we're on to public to be heard. This is a time for the public to speak to the Select Board on topics that are not on the agenda tonight. Is there anyone here tonight wishing to speak during public to be heard? Sue.
I just wanted to share, in my GMP bill, there was the annual notice regarding herbicide use. This was kind of a topic last year, and people missed the opportunity to opt in to get notified, so it's in everybody's utility bill right now. And I don't know what the town, what the action was for the town to...
I'll double check. I'm not sure that we ever actually adopted any formal policy, but I will double check that and see if there's any instructions for the town.
Well, I meant more to get the information for where they're going to be spraying and what they're going to be spraying.
Oh, we are supposed to be receiving that mailing.
Yeah.
The
Did
town
opt
is,
in.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Sue. And Pat.
Yes. Where to begin? At the last meeting, it was announced that Evan signed a contract and is coming here to start work on February the 26th. And I had asked you in the past, in my many days of proposed retirement and actual retirement, to speed up as best you can the recruitment, selection, and hiring, which you did, and I'm thankful for. And the 28th of February is my retirement day. Just thought, I think you may have known this. I just thought that I would say it. Channel 17, and you again,
20th or 28th?
28th.
28th.
So that's locked and loaded.
Well, that is
28th.
under penalty of severe pain from home.
Don't want that.
Severe pain.
Anything else? That-
No, thank you all.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak during public to be heard?
Only,
Okay, Mike?
Patrick, you are gonna join us at town meeting, I would assume?
Max has
Special-
Max has already
special
extracted that promise from me, and Michael, after all this budget discussions and hard work by the staff and the board, I wouldn't miss it for the world.
Very good.
Okay. If there's nothing else for public to be heard, then we're going to move on to our item 5, which is public hearing. So for the budget, so I'll declare the public hearing open, and this is a public hearing on the FYE 2019 operating budget. And just quick summary: the proposed FYE 2019 budget is $14,299,932. That's $595,193 more than last year, and as a percent, that's an increase in the operating budget of 4.34%. Right?
595, 116.
595, 1.
16.
This says 193.
Yeah, it's 193 in the warning. It's 193 as well.
And this is
Yeah.
what? This is 116.
In the articles. In the articles, it's
193.
193.
Just checking.
Okay. So 193 is correct, right? Or are you checking? Okay. So the public hearing is open. Is there anyone here tonight in the audience that would like to talk about the budget? Or have questions about the budget? Okay. Then hearing none, then I will have a motion to, do you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I was curious if the line 500, the county tax, did we get the update? No.
I haven't seen it at least.
Because you said sometimes it comes in right around this time.
Good question. Thanks for checking. Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Irene. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion about closing the public hearing on the FYE 2019 operating budget? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. We're going to move on
Be
to...
adopting it later on in the business.
Yes, and we'll be, adopting it later on. I think it's number F, or
6F.
6F. Okay. So, first item of business is Green Mountain Transit presentation, and we have Mark Sousa with us tonight. Welcome, Mark. Thank you. Yeah, why don't you come over there? We'll have the we'll have it up on the big board. And again, thank you for coming tonight to walk us through this. We have it in our packet. We've read it, but I'd love you to go over it. People in the audience maybe haven't seen it.
And I have some extra copies as well, so I can leave them for anybody. Thank you again, yes.
Mark, would you like this, or do you want me to scroll through for you?
If you don't mind scrolling through, would that be okay, or? Okay, thank you. So I am Mark Sousa, I'm the general manager of Green Mountain Transit. I've been with Green Mountain Transit since the summer of 2014. If you remember, 2014 wasn't a great year for CCTA at the time. The name was the year of the strike, and so I came in right after that. And so I started in, like I said, June of 2014. Went into operations, kind of moved myself up. And before taking over the general manager position, I was the assistant general manager under Karen Walton, who moved on. I took over approximately a year ago. And so I just wanted to come in and have an opportunity to introduce myself to the board, kind of a very quick presentation of kind of like where we are, what we're doing, what we're up to, some of the exciting things that we've done. We've done a reorganization of the organization, and we'll kind of go through and I just kind of explain some things that we're up to, and then at the end we can answer any questions that you may have.
Sounds good.
So basically, just about Green Mountain Transit. This gives you the kind of the language that we were chartered in 1973, and under the name of Chittenden County Transportation Authority (CCTA). In 2011, we merged and took over the Green Mountain Transit Agency, which is the Berlin, the rural area of the Berlin and the St. Albans facilities. We kind of merged those together, and we currently fall into Green Mountain Transit, but we do have a bill H604 that's at the legislature to change the name officially because it was chartered to, and it's going to be Green Mountain Transit Authority. We are currently in five counties in the state of Vermont. We're the largest transit agency in the state, and we transport approximately anywhere between 2.5 to 3 million passengers a year combined. So that's kind of who we are and how we got here. So there will be a change at the legislature this year to officially change the name.
So it'll be GMTA?
It'll be GMTA. We'll just stay in the Green Mountain Transit. The authority piece will just be the official name. The next slide is basically what I wanted to show you was kind of our org chart. It's very hard to see, and I apologize, but that's why we kind of put it in your packets. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to basically streamline the organization a little bit. We originally used to have 8 directors that were reporting up the chain. Now we've kind of have it down to four directors and the marketing person, manager who directly reports to me. So basically the structure is I have an executive leadership team, all who have been at GMT for several years. And basically what I've done is I've kind of merged some of the departments into divisions, and these 4 are basically just right under me, and they kind of do, like I said, the executive leadership team, they kind of have some authority over making decisions that I do spend time at the legislature, and there are day-to-day decisions that they may make, and so we meet weekly, and so I've structured it to the point where if you look at the kind of the lowest position on that org chart basically has a pretty good streamline to me if they need to. We have a very large open door policy. I meet with everybody, and we have individual meetings. We have basically, and we'll go through this a little bit later, but this allows staff to basically, have a direct report to their direct report, but then also the ability to come into my office and have a conversation. So, just took the 8 directors, put them into 4. Thank you. The one thing I wanted to bring to this organization when I took over was that I feel that our staff and operators not only are part of the organization, but also part of the community that they serve or they live in. And so one thing I brought to the organization, and I wanted to kind of make sure that we Street Veterans Housing COTS program, and we basically it was all about bringing in household goods for the veterans, and so staff brought in their items, and then we challenged the public to come in on the one day that we partnered with Channel 44, and we basically gave them double the amount of ticket sales for that because the veterans use the bus quite a bit in town. So we basically doubled the number of tickets we sold that day, and we doubled that. So that was our first very successful outreach. The second one we did was Washington County. This was one of my, this was kind of a fun one where we went to Washington County Family Center and said, what is it that you may need? And they just basically, we need diapers. And, for the moms and the babies. And so we had a lot of fun with that, and we challenged staff to come in, how many could bring in stacks of diapers, and then me at a store trying to buy diapers, and I'm calling my wife like, what did we used to buy? I don't remember. And so we had a really good time with that, but we were also donated quite a bit, and we had a media partner down in Washington County. At that point, it was a radio station. And so people were bringing in donations all the time, and it became another really good event. And then the last one we did was from Franklin County and Franklin County Community Action. We did a winter clothing drive. We again asked them what they needed, and they said, winter clothes are always a big deal. So we basically again challenged staff to come in and bring in coats, winter coats and gloves and things like that. And we had a great amount of response to the point where our Teamsters donated $500 in clothes. Which, if I go back to when I started, 2014, the Teamsters and the CCTA just did not see eye to eye, but the relationship has considerably turned around. So they donated $500 worth of winter clothes. They went shopping and they had fun with it, and they brought in a big box. And so that was also successful. This will happen every year. We'll do 3 outreach in the community, and staff will make recommendations to their local organizations that they think that it might be benefit from us doing these things. So that was the one thing that we like to highlight because we think it's really good for the partnership between our staff and community. Another organization, couple of organization highlights that I like to bring up is that we also start a staff volunteer program. So if staff comes on quarterly, they get 8 hours that they come to. Basically, they have a nonprofit that they want to volunteer, and they basically get approval for it, and then basically we let them go and volunteer for the day, and we pay them for it. So they don't have to use any of their vacation time or anything like that. So they can find an organization within their community and volunteer that in that wherever that nonprofit they may think is helpful. So we do it quarterly. That's brand new for the organization. Another part of any organization, in my mind, is communication. And unless you have clear communication within the organization, sometimes messages get a little muddy. So one thing we started was a software called Bloomfire. It's an internal intranet, and basically everybody gets an account. Everybody from the operators all the way, and anybody in the organization has a login. They can log in. And what they can basically do is go in there, and they can actually go to HR, and they can grab documents that, like a retirement document that they may not have time because their hours are different. So they may just go online at any time, log in, request a document, then we would send it to their account, and they can basically just pull it up at any time that they want. It's all done by mobile, has apps. So it's something we started. We're just getting off the ground in this because it's one of those things where you have to kind of figure out exactly how much you want to share and what you want to share. And then one of the other organization highlights is I do quarterly staff meetings. I do a town hall meeting, basically, where we project from Burlington, our offices, to all of our locations. We have 5 in the winter, and basically we go over certain things that are going on in the organization, and we may focus one day on training just on Bloomfire, but we do them quarterly. So everybody in the organization can log on and actually watch a live kind of town hall meeting, ask questions, type in questions and things like that. So very open, transparent. And so that's been very, very successful within the organization. This one is interesting that you probably have heard a little bit on our electric bus program that we went for. So we, in conjunction with Burlington Electric, VEIC, and VTrans, put together a grant called the NOLO, and that basically is no emission, low emissions. And what was kind of neat about this was the uniqueness of the organizations all working together. Your utility company in Burlington working in putting basically money towards the bus purchase. VEIC putting together all the grant, and VTrans putting together money for the buses. We kind of put it all in the grant. Originally we asked for 4, but we were settling with 2. And it's a national grant that goes, and I think there were a total of 556 agencies that applied, and we were one of them that got the grant, which I think because of the uniqueness and the partnership was compelling to the federal government. So they came up with the money, and then what we did was we then all got together one day at BED, and then BED came up with another grant for us, which gave us more match money. Ultimately, instead of the 2, we are now going to purchase 4. We are currently in the process of doing the RFP right now, and hopefully to be awarded sometime in March or April. When it gets here, we don't know, because that'll be just a matter of getting them built. So we're pretty excited about it. They'll be fully 100% electric. And so we will charge them within Burlington. That's the deal with the BED is Burlington Electric, is that we have to charge them overnight at low peak, so 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. and within Burlington. As long as they're charged in Burlington, we can use them anywhere. So it didn't matter.
Is that an 80-20 grant?
That is a 80-20. Yep, it is. And again, the difference is about a little over 200,000 between a diesel, a current clean diesel to an electric vehicle is about $200,000 difference. So we had to bridge that gap. So that's the BED money that came in, and then the V-Light came in with some funds. So that we're pretty excited about it. Hopefully depending on the build kind of line on how long they can get them on the 4 buses compared to, say, 30 buses from somebody else. So hopefully we can kind of get them in there fairly quick. I'd like to get them on the road. But that's it. It was all awarded. The money's always secured, and we're going forward with it. So.
How many miles can you go on charge?
So, this is an interesting conversation, because in their paperwork they'll tell you, oh yeah, we can go 230, 240 miles. But what are the conditions? And so what we anticipate is anywhere between about 170 to 200 is what we would need, about a 10-hour shift, and that's kind of where we are. And so we're kind of we're being very conservative. And so we know that it'll stay out there. We did do some pilot testing with 2 companies. So we do have some data that shows that we'll have it on the road for about 10 hours. But they say about 230 to 240, but that's probably in the summertime at 85 degrees and not in the winter at -20. So
Yeah.
Might be a few
a little bit of,
more miles in the winter, right?
These next couple are just kind of explaining how we are funded. I'll go through this quick. These are our funding streams that we currently have. There is one that we haven't put on here, and that is one that we are working with the Department of Labor in Vermont, where we went to them and we said, listen, we train so many operators in our 4 to 6 week training program. We're constantly having classes of 5 to 7. Is there any way that we can partner with, because you do pay other agencies to do that, for profits, but if we could utilize some of those funds for our current training program, would that be possible? And they said, well, it's interesting. Nobody's ever asked us this before, and what we propose is that we would be the training organization for the whole state, for all the transit agencies within the state. And so we applied for it through a grant, and we actually received the grant about 2 weeks ago. So it's something that's very unusual, something that's never been done in Vermont anyways, at the DOL. So we're pretty excited about that. So we're hoping to build off that. And so we just literally 2 weeks ago received the grant. So we're working on that. So there's other ways of finding, funding streams, which helps the towns that we
appreciate that.
that we serve and, have municipal organizations with. The pie chart is just breaking that all out for everybody to kind of look at, and you'll see that where we get the majority of our money, and is the federal grants, and we get several different grants. We get capital, we get operating. We're a direct recipient from the federal government. Real quick, Greg, the next one is just Federal Transit Administration, VTrans. We have a great relationship and they help us with the rural area, with the rural funding for operating. And they give us some capital funds for our bus purchases and some operating funds for match for operating as well. And then CCRPC, we do get planning grants from CCRPC. The member community is obviously what Essex is a community that has voting representation from the town on the board, and the town is assessed a tax for service. The non-member communities do not have voting representative from their community on the board. We cannot assess those municipalities. Some of the rural areas we don't have agreement. We don't have. They're not member agreements, but they do contribute to the service. For instance, the city of Montpelier, they have representation from the Regional Planning Commission, but they just contribute monies to the service that we provide for them. within the city. This is just an example of some of the smaller rural areas that we provide service at.
Can you remind me, is Colchester now a member?
They are not. They are a contract. We have a 3-year contract with them. We just signed this year. Yep. One of the more important ones for the communities is our paratransit transportation services. It's a mandate through the federal government. If you have a fixed route, you can only go you must provide service 3/4 of a mile from that fixed route. It is, it's as the crow flies, so it can kind of cross over different routes. But basically, it's a requirement from the federal government that we allow them to complementary paratransit services. They don't apply to commuter routes. And we currently contract with SSTA, which is based out of Colchester, for our current paratransit services right now. The next program that would be somewhat important is the E&D, our Elders and Disabled program. These are federal funds that are applied for. It's basically enhanced mobility. The beauty of the kind of the E&D program is that there's not a lot of mandates on this, so we can kind of work a little bit different with this than we can with the paratransit ADA, which is mandated. And so we have, working with SSTA, they provide the service in Chittenden County, and they receive the local match from the communities. It basically improves the mobility for seniors. That funding has been a little bit, this past budget from the VTrans or AOT, they took money away from this program, and so there could be an impact at some point. But we're currently working with our current agencies and the E&D group to continue the service that we currently provide. And then the last and important thing is your ADA ridership here in Essex. As you'll see, there's a considerable kind of a dip in that. Much of the drop, though, we can contribute to the Essex senior vans that currently operate within the town, and we're actually utilizing the current kind of program and policy that is happening here. We're trying to kind of merge into some of these other communities to kind of explain to them this could happen if you had a park and rec department that was willing to take seniors to trips. ADA is tricky in a sense that because it's a mandate, that if you had 2 people, and this just happened basically, move from, say, Williston to Essex, and then they take the trip every day, and I use this example because maybe it'll help me at some point, but there's 2 nuns that moved from Williston to South Burlington, and they basically take the vehicle to church every day. And so the 2 of them go to the church and they go, but so that's, if you think about it, it's 10 round trips. They go together, the 10 round trips, but if you add that up over a period of time, your ADA costs could go up because of that. But it's a mandate. They both qualify for ADA, and so that's simple as 2 people could actually cause a kind of an uptick in cost. Hasn't happened here, but that's just an example of how kind of it could be. So, but like I said, the idea of the Essex van, senior van, is actually working well for you. So
you coordinate that then with our...
So we basically, you guys come up with the local match, and then we secure the funds for you for the 80%, and then we basically turn the van over, and you guys, your town operates it through your park and rec department, I believe, and then we maintain the vehicles as well. So we still have the kind of maintain, and then we build the town, I believe. So
I meant coordinate between the SSTA and the senior van.
no.
Try to make sure that more of the rides go on the senior van.
Yeah, no, they really don't coordinate, but what's happened, I think, especially here in Essex, the seniors that know about it would rather take the van because it's a lot more convenient. It's you can pick it. There's no time that you can actually request that time and things like that. So it's a little bit more flexible.
It's free.
And it's free.
Taxpayer.
Well, that's correct. And that's really all I had. And I appreciate you allowing me to be in here. Just give you a quick overview. I know it was quick, but I'm available for questions now, later, whichever is easier for the board. And emails and whichever way you want to go.
All right, I'll open up to the board. If there's any questions or comments from the board for Mark? Andy?
I'm thrilled about your your community, I'm just looking for the page, what'd you call it?
Community relationships and outreach.
Yeah, your community partnerships there, and thank you for bringing that to the organization and for sharing that with us, and for telling us about it. It's awesome. The question I had about it is the staff volunteer program. You said they get 8 hours. Is that a year?
It's quarterly.
Quarterly.
Quarterly, yeah, and it has to go through a process, so there's, has to be a nonprofit that's recognized. A lot of times United Way does a lot of these programs, and so we've, reached out to United Way, and so, but we have a whole process that has to be approved by managers, and then I have to sign the final volunteer.
Do you have a feel for your participation rate?
So we've just basically kind of opened it up to staff within the last quarter. In the last quarter, we've had, I think, two or three, we're on our third one's taking us up on it. So what the one of the issues was trying to figure out in local communities, like one thing that we used to do, where I came from, was we used to volunteer and go to a nonprofit to help paint the homeless shelter or something like that. And so what we had to do is compile a list of local organizations that could utilize our services and kind of reach out to them and make sure they were okay with it. So it took a little bit of time to get going, but I think we're on our third staff right now that's doing it.
We do a similar thing at Global Foundries, and we work through the United Way. They actually set up the website, put all the projects up there, and people are allowed to sign up for the different projects. We do it in the spring and in the fall. It's twice a year.
Twice a year, yeah. Yeah, we went back and forth on how many, and we may cut back depending on the involvement. But I wanted staff the ability to just have quarterly, just make a decision, and so if I don't want to miss it, and okay, can I do it this quarter? I can skip a quarter. It didn't matter. It's all on them. So
Sorry to focus on this so much, but
No.
I'm interested. I'm intrigued by it. So do people go as a group, or is it individuals?
right now it's individuals, but they can go as a group. So one thing that I plan on doing in the spring or summer of this year is getting all of us together and finding one organization that we can all do one full day together. It's kind of a
Yeah.
team building.
Great team building.
And kind of help out a homeless shelter and take everybody basically out of the building to an organization, help that organization for the day, and use it, like you said, as a team building exercise. So that's one thing we're working on right now.
Can I ask a harder question?
Okay.
Okay, in your memo that you included that actually wasn't part of the presentation, actually your name's not on the memo, so this might be more challenging for you. The last two lines say, the board and staff continue to discuss a more sustainable source of funding. Until that funding can be secured, the board and staff continue to work diligently to find efficiencies in the company's operation. What's the concern there with funding?
Well, funding is always our biggest challenge, right? And when the state, it's really a trickle-down effect, unfortunately. It is if the state, all the way to the governor's office, comes in and says that this is what the budget's gonna look like, it then just trickles down through AOT to V-Trans, and then ultimately to the transit agencies within the state. And while the federal money has been there, it's the local match that is challenging for us sometimes, because just in our capital program last year, there was $1.2 million of capital match money that was taken out of V-Trans budget to basically purchase vehicles. So at this point, we're a little bit behind on purchasing our vehicles in the rural area, not so much in the urban area, because we just had 12 vehicles that just went on the road. And we have the 4 new electric buses, and then for the urban area. It's more the rural area, so the funding is a challenge throughout our organization, because we do rely so much on the federal government, but then we also rely on local match money and from V-Trans. And last year, we just really kind of took it, they cut that right out of the budget from V-Trans, and there was basically no purchasing of extra vehicles or anything like that. So it's just always a challenge every year just to make sure that, that we can keep up with the demand. I mean, if a vehicle's age is 5 years and we're at 4.8, then we should have something in the queue already that should be, being built. So that's where we are. So it's kind of just a general statement for the organization in a whole, as a whole.
One last question? All right, sorry. I asked this of every regional entity that comes in and talks to us. There's a number of regional entities now, and there's also talk about potentially adding more of them as time progresses. The police dispatch was one that was recently talked about. You all have, I guess, what would be called back office functions, where you have IT departments and human resources and procurement and things that aren't necessarily fundamental to the job you do. Is there any opportunity to discuss amongst the regional entities, such as yourself, the Waste District, the Water District, the Regional Planning Commission, to consolidate any of those back office functions so that you can be more efficient?
Yeah, we haven't really talked with those organizations, but I will tell you one thing that we are doing currently is we're having a consultant come in and look at our ADA operations, the SSTA piece of it, the E&D and the ADA. And we're having them come in and take a look at, does it make sense for them to continue with the contractor? Does it make sense for us to possibly take it over? Does it make sense to go back out in an RFP to try to be more efficient, especially if those operations worked day to day, and we kind of grab that piece of it, or does it just make sense to keep it where it is? So we have had these conversations. I will also tell you that in a perfect world, we would love to see transit in general, kind of regionalize, right? Because you have 8 agencies throughout the state, and some of them are a lot smaller than us, and they also have an IT person, they also have an HR person, they also have, and so what we've started the conversation with is, should we talk about kind of discussing the efficiencies of all the transit agencies in general, and maybe the RFPs all come out of Chittenden County because we have the staff to do it, and maybe then they can look at their organizations, and so there has been some talk. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? So again, I want to thank you for coming in. It sounds like you're making some real positive change there. And we appreciate you being sensitive to the local assessments that the town's
Absolutely.
It's a fair amount of money.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's a service that I know our residents depend on, so thank you.
Thank you again for having me. It was very nice to meet
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Okay, we're gonna move on to business item 6B. And tonight we have Kirk Carter. I'm going to invite him to the table to talk about Greater Burlington Industrial Corp., better known as GBIC. So welcome.
I don't have a slideshow.
Okay. We do have your memo, though. Why
Again,
don't you
Kurt
give us
Carter.
a
I'm
rundown?
the Vice President of GBIC, been there 10 years, retired from a career in economic development with the state, and I've been working to support my kids going through college. Frank can't make it tonight. He's at a city council meeting in Burlington, unfortunately, and
Divide and conquer.
busy as well. Just thought you have the memo. I can run through it quickly, and I understand there's a few things I'd like to discuss. So basically, just to refresh your memory on GBIC, we're one of the 12 regional development corporations in the state. We've been around a long time. Basically, we work with businesses that export goods and services out of the state, bring $1 in to the state. So it's not the retail or the service sector. It's the manufacturers or the business service companies that are like a dealer.com that's selling out of the state. We have a bunch of functions here. The first one on the list is business retention and expansion. That's what I spend most of my time on. I have a list of a database of about 200 companies that we try to keep track of. I represent about 40,000 employees in the Chittenden County area, so generally those 200 companies are generally 10 or more employees, so it's not the smaller ones. We work closely with Small Business Development Center. It has an office in our building to work with the smaller companies. We work with economic development incentives. I'll talk a little bit about the Vermont Employment Growth Initiative incentive when I talk about some specifics here in Essex. Workforce education and training. We've been promoting the Vermont Training Program. You just heard of a Vermont Training Program grant that was issued to
TNT.
the transit company. We try to get out to, also with to other businesses kind of on my key list to work on the training program. As well, Frank is the chair of the State Workforce Development Board, and last year S-135 required a report, and so that whole statewide report has been consumed a little bit of time from Frank and Seth. We try to stay out of Montpelier and legislative advocacy, but I was there last Friday, and occasionally there's things that come up that we were asked to testify on. Do a little bit of permit facilitation. We had an issue with Autumn Harp. Their construction was held up. I helped a little bit with that as an example. The other thing I guess you can point at more you may not be familiar with is we work closely with Chittenden County Regional Planning Commission on the SEDS, and we just updated the economic development information on the SEDS. There are other resources for economic development available through we have sort of a regional office in Burlington at 60 Main Street. The Small Business Development Center, we provide them an office. The Vermont Procurement Technical, the PTAC, Procurement Technical Assistance Center, is in the basement as well. VITA, the Vermont Industrial Development Authority, is in our building. I'll just go through some specifics on Essex. Autumn Harp, as you know, recently put a significant building expansion on. We work closely with them and encourage them in their expansion through something called the Vermont Employment Growth Incentive. This is really the only incentive program we have in the state. The way it works is the state calculates the economic benefit from the project. They keep a piece of that up to like 20% of the economic benefit created primarily through employment payroll taxes and other benefits that accrue through capital expenditures. And then they return a piece of that incentive back to the company to encourage the incentive to occur, so you essentially create that economic benefit to the state. So the state takes a piece of it, and the returns, if the business meets those targets, a portion of that new revenue is returned to the business over 5-year periods. It's a 5-year period. So in the case of Autumn Harp, they received over $500,000 for the expansion. We did the same thing with Blodgett. When Blodgett moved out of Burlington and bought Miller's building on that was the same way. It was a little bit more. They had a number of jobs but the capital expenditure was pretty good size. Also, they moved a company up from Long Island as well, and hopefully they may be allocating some other businesses in that building as they expand. We got a training grant for Autumn Harp and New Harbor Security as well. It's a 50% match, basically, from the state Vermont training program. We're actually working with a number of businesses currently in Essex Junction. I guess the only one I'm really comfortable to talk about is Gordini. I had a meeting with them last week, and they've already come to the town for a warehouse expansion out there. This is a kind of what I try to spend my time on, is finding these little companies that are silently operating out in the woods somewhere, and then have an opportunity to expand into a new market and develop some additional jobs. And so, Gordini is another company we're working with. Talk a little bit about industrial lands. On a county-wide basis, we're pretty much out of industrial lands, with the exception of a few pockets here and there, or a sizable piece of industrial land, as you know, in Essex. Two pieces really. One is Global Foundries, where they have property that Global is not using for production and is available. It's properly zoned, it has all the infrastructure, so that's opportunity. The other opportunity is up on Saxon Hill and Al Seneco's land up there, who's in the process of expanding, and there's also some other lots up there as well. We have been have a couple of meetings with Global, just trying to get an understanding of what's where and how it works, and it sort of breaks down into about 5 different projects when you talk about whether it's a wastewater treatment facility or the 43 acres or their significant presence in Williston as well. I sort of include that in our Global Foundries efforts. Building opportunities, do you have some vacant buildings? I kind of look at those as opportunities. Alpla moved out of the building that Bob Miller bought from Pizzagalli. That building's available, and REM also owns the building that Food Science was located in. And interesting, coincidentally, those both are about 46,000 square feet. I try to keep in touch with what's going on in Essex through the Economic Development Corporation commission meetings. Greg is pretty good about putting the agendas together, and whenever I can, and there's something good on the agenda, try to attend those. So, interestingly, as you know, we have a pretty good presence of jobs in Essex Junction and a lot of activity, and so we find ourselves pretty busy with Essex.
Okay.
I know you have some questions, so.
Yeah, thank you, Kurt, for that rundown. So open it up to the board for questions. I see
Yeah.
Irene.
Kurt, could you just remind me where New Harbor Security is? I haven't run into those in my travels. Are they in the Saxon Hill area as well? Or are they
They're
in
another little
Lothian?
stealth company. They do internet security. They're located down on River Road. I'm trying to think what's down there.
So with
State
the
Farm Insurance is in there. The brewery's there. They're right next door on the other side of the.
Oh, okay. All right.
brewery, there.
Thank you. Have to go look for them.
Sue?
So I'm glad you used the word stealth, because my question was going to be, is there more that can be done to publicize or showcase some of the different businesses that are here? Because I think in a lot of cases, people don't even know these are in Vermont or even in Chittenden County. And there's not a week that goes by that I don't learn about a business that's either here or in the state of Vermont that I'm like, I had no idea was in the state of Vermont. So I think that given the current drain that we have on people leaving Vermont, there could be more that could be done to identify what all the businesses are, and some of the more innovative businesses that are here and no one knows are here.
I agree with that, and that's particularly important for companies when they're trying to attract employees to come here, because the employee, like to come to a dealer.com, wants to know if it doesn't work out with dealer, who else is around? Well, My Web Grocer is around, and there's a whole bunch of smaller, companies in this field. So, or you can have the trailing spouse, as well, looking what else is available. So it's an excellent point. I know that the Economic Development Commission has put together a list of companies, and I know Greg, I don't know if that's been updated lately, but that's still.
Greg Morgan keeps track of that. I think he updates it periodically, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it was updated last year.
That, as a document, that is available for Essex.
Yeah, I was thinking broader than just Essex. I know that you're just within the Chittenden County region, but I think, I was thinking more statewide, that, that it seems to be something that's discussed a lot at the state level, but it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot being done to at least showcase what exists currently that may actually help people stay within the state. I know, part of it is attracting new people to come, but also we're losing a lot of
I think that,
people.
with electronic media now, they're trying to do more of that with websites. GBIC has a website, although we don't spend a lot of, don't have a lot of time on it because it's just three of us in the office.
Like Gordini, I didn't know Gordini was here. I have a pair of Gordini mittens that are 20 years old that are fantastic. I had no idea that it was here.
The State Department of Economic Development as well tries to put stories on now, and they just have a new website. So I think that's part of the way you can do it, is through some electronic media. But I agree with you. There's some real surprises out there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that nobody knows about. Andy?
I work at Global Foundries, and I have to say that I am not speaking on their behalf. This is just my own comments here. But the job that I do doesn't it doesn't affect anybody. I'm not working with anybody here in Vermont, and so when I retire, it's very unlikely that they would replace me with another individual from Vermont. Are there things that your organization is involved with to encourage or promote remote employment? Because I work out of my house 80% of the time now, or more, and I live here because I choose to live here. But you'd have to, in order to replace my job in Vermont, you'd have to have somebody who wanted to live in Vermont to come do it.
GBIC hasn't done anything along those lines. I know that the Department of Economic Development for the state, that's one of the things that they've been doing some promoting on. I know it's you have to be a little careful with remote work. I mean, it's good for some individuals, it's good for some companies. Some other companies struggle with it a little bit. So it's certainly something you got to some degree, you need to encourage and inform people what the availabilities are out there. We're not able to do it, but I can provide us some information or I guess get back to you on what the state has done along those lines. But that's you're right. I mean, as people age and retire, I can't think of who around the table here that might be, but
Greg, he's next.
We need some, and that's why GBIC has spent a lot of time on this workforce development, trying to encourage and support skills training and workforce development through the educational systems and other programs, because almost everybody I talk to has jobs openings that they just can't fill.
Right. That's what I've learned as well. Right. Okay, anybody else? Mike?
I was wondering if, and this is going to kind of dovetail a little bit with what Sue said earlier, is there any way the recent moves here to Essex notwithstanding, is there anything that we can do as a board to help, besides our own outreach program, to encourage businesses to expand, to stay here and expand here? Is there anything that we can do to help GBIC in that regard? Because we don't always hear about it first, and we're...
My Economic Development 101 response is going to be what the municipalities need to do is try to create an attractive environment. And so you do that with just who you are, and then permitting and regulatory issues, access to government.
Right.
It's try to create that friendly business environment. And a lot of what you do and involved is touches on that in various ways. So, and I think, Mike, just being available, I mean, when an issue comes up, somebody has, and I know you've done this in the past. I mean, somebody's looking for some assistance as being accessible and able to do that. So I think that's how I'd address that.
Okay.
I'd like to expand a little bit on that. We often find out after the fact that a company was looking to expand and then couldn't and left. And that's obviously not where we want to be inserted at the end when it's done. I'd like to find a way that GBIC could work with the municipal manager when you find out that there is a company here in Essex that's looking to expand or thinking about moving. I'd like to make sure that we have an open communication that allows the manager to know that, so that we can perhaps be part of the solution and not just be informed of the result. And I know there's confidentiality things, but those are easy to solve, right? You can have non-disclosure agreements set up between GBIC and the manager's office, for example. But the worst thing for me to see is be informed after the fact, like FlexiSeal, for example. I'd like to make sure that we know when you do that a company needs something in order to stay here, because it's difficult to attract, but businesses here, that's a great investment to ensure that they stay here and they're happy and that they can expand. So somehow I'd like to find a way to make that communication happen.
I can talk about that a little bit. And maybe on FlexiSeal is a little bit different because it's a company leaving. And here again, I knew probably 4 years ago that FlexiSeal needed more space. So it's at what point is it get critical that they're looking, okay, they need to grow. And at what point does that get to the point where we need to get heavily involved, or are they just looking? So that, perhaps in that case, I or GBIC could have maybe informed some of the administration in the town on that one.
Sure.
More often the situation, Max, is that we meet with a company, and it's understood that everything's confidential, and the company has to be confident of that fact, or they don't tell you anything. So it's sort of self-evident in a discussion that we're talking about this. It's here in this room, and that's as far as it goes. And I mean, next spring, I think it'd be like 40 years of my life has been in economic development, and it's understood. You just don't talk about those things. There's got to be some situations where we will set up a meeting with the municipality, with the client. But I think it's very rare, or fairly rare, unless it's a specific issue, that we will go to a town and say, hey, have you heard so-and-so is expanding? We just can't really do that. So I agree with you, there needs to be some kind of mechanism. I don't think it's a non-disclosure agreement. I don't think you really need that. You just need the ability to understand them between the parties, who can talk to whom about what. And I think what our concern is dealing with the state or any governmental organization. It's open meeting law, and so we're concerned about the public access to that information when we're talking to a municipality. I guess it's been my experience, I know, talking with Greg in the planning function, he's been we had good conversations with Greg regarding what's going on between the planning commission and what they're hearing, or who's come in and talked about what projects. So that discussion would be good, and then maybe that sort of avenue would work.
Well,
I guess my concern is to go to the select board.
No, you don't even come to the select board. I mean, I would go to the manager's office, and if there's something like tax stabilization or something that might want to be discussed, then that would have to come to the select board.
Certainly will. I mean, tax stabilization, I'd don't suggest that, so I mean,
I use that just
Yeah,
as
I
as
know,
an
but-
example. But most things could be handled there, because we have a real, investment in these companies. We want to keep them here. And the worst thing is, to find out after the fact that they left, and they were looking to expand, and we didn't have the opportunity to try to be part of the solution.
It's tricky. Blodgett, we've worked with them for a long time, knowing they needed more space. We've worked with them and failed a number of times in finding them better space. And they finally worked out a deal with Bob Miller for his building, as you know. I mean, and we weren't directly involved in those final negotiations, but once we knew that the deal was on the table, then we were able to be involved.
But that's bringing a company in. I'm talking about the companies that are within Essex now, and are thinking about moving because they don't have the space or they need something. That's where I think we'd like to be part of the solution.
Like
in
food
that.
science, what happened with food science? Can you share?
Food Science needed a bigger building. They outgrew their space. They're in 46,000 square feet, they needed 60. They also were leasing from Bob Miller, and Bob Miller had 180,000 square feet right up on Sand Hill that was sitting there empty all the time they were looking. So I can't believe that, and if anybody could put together a deal for Food Science for a new building or an existing building, it would be Bob Miller. For new space, it just happened to be the building over in Williston had been sitting empty for a long time, and I got to assume they got a pretty good deal on some space over there. So that's the thing that's going to come up like that. We didn't get involved. Yeah.
As it relates to the Blodgett project,
Yeah.
did you forget a word, Kurt? Between the two and Vermont, shouldn't there have been an Essex inserted in there? And it should read the Long Island
Yeah.
company from Long Island to Essex, Vermont.
You're right. You're right.
Is that premature to say that out loud?
When we did the veggie application, they talked about this. They put it in the veggie application. I know that they've been down there meeting with this company. My understanding is they're going to be the first tenant in the big building, but I don't even know, Pat, the name of the company.
I don't either. I just thought that.
You probably know as much about it as I do at this point.
All I knew is that it was
It hasn't been announced. I don't.
No, there's no announcement. I just thought it was a symbiotic relationship between the two businesses. So
What do you
we'll
mean?
keep, huh? Oh, that Blodgett and this company needed to be in close proximity for business reasons. And to me, that meant Essex.
Blodgett's owned by Middleby. They have a product line, a huge product line, and a lot of it depends on the whether it's a pizza oven or the steam kettle or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so they're always the Middleby plants, of which Blodgett is one, is always competing for these new products that are coming out, and so we've been lucky with Blodgett and Burlington that they have a great workforce, that a great reputation, you can get stuff out, and so they've sort of been winning these contracts, and the Market Forge that moved up into the Hoover Sooner building out there was an example of a line that was purchased and brought to Vermont, and apparently they're bringing this, I don't know what the status of the deal is, but my understanding was, yes, they're coming to Essex, but I don't know.
Okay. That was my understanding too, but there's nothing, nothing's done until the deal is done.
Yeah. And I drove by the other day and there weren't many cars in the parking lot, so
It's usually a good sign.
Any other
that's how I do it.
questions for Kurt? GBIC?
Max, getting back to this,
Yeah.
what do you suggest? Because I know this has come up before that, and I apologize that, we can't say, hey, we just talked with this company down the road here and they're hoping to move or expand, and what can you do to help? Because if the company wants to talk to the town, they'll talk to the town, whether it's a zoning issue or a town issue. But I would like to be able to have some kind of an agreement with somehow a system set up with either the new town manager.
Especially the
or
manager's
any-
office, right?
So we could have an open discussion about some of these things.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for, to
And an
help you be successful
Example of that
too.
is the global property.
Yeah, that one,
The 43 acres out there particular. I know
North
they've been in.
the North 40.
Empty parking lot. It's got dirt piled in it right now. Something's gonna happen with that. Would like to coordinate, make sure that's something that you guys are involved with and
Excellent. And that's what I'm looking for. Again, not to get in the way but to help, ensure that we're doing the best we can for Essex to try to, with the economic development. Again, in particular, companies that are here, we want to keep them here. We want to help them grow and thrive. We'd love to bring in new companies, but the ones that are here, we really don't want to see them go, so.
We've spent a lot of time with IBM and Global, and people
We do.
forget IBM's still there too. They got a
Yes.
pretty good presence.
400 employees or so, yeah.
I mean, compared to what they were before, that's not a big deal, but to have 300 employees right across the river here is
Yeah, we're certainly glad they're there.
significant.
To Andy's
That's-
point, there's a fair amount of also remote employees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have somebody from all counties working at that plant.
Well, appreciate the
Okay.
time.
Yeah,
and
well, I
we
appreciate
look
your
forward
time
to-
too, Kurt. Thank you for taking time to come in and talk to us.
Thank you for your work too, Kurt.
Yes.
Sorry to see that Pat's leaving. We'll have to, he's still gonna be around though, I hope.
Oh, I will. Always available for discussion and libations.
Okay, Kurt. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Okay, so we're going to move on to business item 6C and get an update about the Essex Community Historical Society Save the Tower campaign. And tonight we have Eva Clough and Ann Gray with us. Hello. Welcome. Nice to see you again. So you're going to update us on how the fundraising's going?
Yes,
for the town.
I am.
And about the work that needs to be done that we didn't know perhaps last time.
Right, we can do that a little. Yeah, well, thank you for having us back. And when we were here a little over a year ago, we promised to come back and give you an update of what had happened periodically. So that's what I intend to do tonight.
Appreciate
And
that.
I will just briefly go over highlight some of the things that were in the letter that we sent you for our TV audience and for you guys too. But we started off last year in January. We sent letters to all of our membership announcing the project and requesting donations, and we got a very good response from our membership on that. We held a public kickoff of the campaign at the tower in May and had a fairly good attendance. It was kind of a rainy day, but we had quite a few people there. We were able to open the tower on the ground floor, so they got in to see what they were missing if they wanted to go up to the top. We've applied for historic preservation grants and for some private funding, foundation funding, which I will go into in just a few minutes. We've also sent letters to other Chittenden County historical societies, other nonprofits like the Rotary and the Masons and the Lions, and we sent letters to all of the businesses at the fort, asking them for donations. We also were invited to present to meetings of the Essex Junction Lions Club and the Richmond Historical Society. We published an article in the Chittenden County Historical Society, and I noticed that I did leave out the word bulletin, and I could say that I did that just to see if you guys were awake, to see if I left something out, but that's probably not the truth. But Tim German wrote a very nice article about the building of the fort and the Tower campaign that we published in the Chittenden County Historical Society Bulletin. And we actually got about $500 as a result of that article, so it was well worth the while. To date, we have a total of $61,355.17, which is interest, and that includes approximately $43,000 that's in the town capital fund. And like I said, I'll go into that in just a few minutes of where the money came from. Last fall, we had collected 50% of the estimated cost of the original estimated cost of the roof and windows, and we were preparing to apply for the Vermont State Historic Preservation Grants. We had been encouraged by the state historic preservation officials to do that, and we were also going to apply for a historic preservation grant from the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution. But as part of those grants, we had to supply a very detailed estimate of the cost, and Essex Public Works obtained that estimate, and what we had hoped to do the roof and the windows from the outside via scaffolding and cranes and things like that. And we found, yeah, it could be done. But the cost of doing it was going to cost as much as it was to repair the stairs. So it made absolutely no sense to put that money in to do that from the outside and then still have to raise that amount of money to do the stairs. We were disappointed. We'd hoped to do the roof and the windows this year. We thought it would not only would it shore it up for prevent further deterioration, but it would also, people would see it being done and they would think that something was going to happen and get them interested in giving us some more money. But we've regrouped and we've started to put together a list of private donors that we can approach. And there are some other foundation money that we'll be applying for. So as part of that attempt to go to the private donors, I put together a packet of information. And I'm going to pass them out to everybody. And we'll be giving those to the private donors. The copies you're getting are not in color, but they will be in color that we give out to them. And we'll put it in a nice little packet. I would appreciate feedback from anybody, from you guys on it, if you think there should be anything extra in it or things that are taken out. I did notice as I was standing by the copier at the UPS store today, watching the copies spit out, that I hadn't updated it with the new cost estimates, but I will do that. And I expect that since Pat is going to have a lot of time on his hands in the next month, that I will expect a lot of feedback from him on this.
Anything you want, anything.
And the other thing we're thinking of doing as part of the packet, we'll either put one of Will Parkinson's books in it, or we will give them to people who make the donation. But Will has graciously given me 5 copies, one for each one of the select board members.
He's very passionate about that tower.
He is
in that
very
area.
passionate about it. Unless anybody has any questions about that first part of it, I can go through the income.
Any questions so far? No?
I'm distracted, so.
I know, I shouldn't have handed it out until the end.
Right.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead on to the budget sheet.
Okay, so the historic preservation grants that we applied for was the Wyndham Foundation. We applied for $10,000. They gave us $5,000, which we were happy to get. And Historic New England, we got the $1,000 we applied for. Historic New England, if people don't know, they're based in the Boston area, and they give $1,000 every year to each of the New England states. And this year Vermont got it. The SURF fund is historic preservation, but it's basically Addison County. They fund 70% Addison County and 30% outside of Addison County. We applied for $5,000 and they denied it. We applied for some money last year from them for the restoration of the Stevens gravestone, and I will apply again this year for more money, and maybe eventually they'll get sick of hearing from us and will give us some money. The other grants we applied for are some private foundations. All of them were long shots. They normally don't fund historic preservations. It's more healthcare related items and education and that kind of thing. But, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So we applied for the Kinney Drug, the Amy Tarrant Foundation, the Richard and Deborah Tarrant Foundation, and Northfield Savings Banks. We have heard from all of them except Amy Tarrant, and they were all denied. But again, it doesn't say that we can't try again. And then the other funds that we've got in is the money that you guys have in the capital fund. Our Essex Historic Society Board has come through with about $1,300. Our members have come through with about $5,600, and then public donations. The public donations would, of course, be the big donors, the major donors, but we have gotten $3,500, about $3,600 from the public. We have $750 that's been pledged that we haven't gotten, and we've gotten $900 from other historic societies and the Lions and the Rotary and people like that. So we have the $61,000, which I guess it's not too bad for a year's worth of work.
Yeah, great.
Very good.
That's really great that you're out trying to raise the funds
Yeah.
and get interest in the community like that.
We have had very good interest in all of the community, and the two groups that we spoke to, there was a lot of interest in. And actually, there was a lady in the Richmond Historical Society who has a friend whose grandfather or great-grandfather, I don't remember.
Great-grandfather.
Great-grandfather actually served at the fort.
Wow.
And he is still in the military out in the West, and she was going to write to him and say, hey, you know, this project's going on, do you want to give him some money? So,
You never know.
never know, right? Yeah.
Okay. Questions about the budget sheet? Looks like you're making progress there. That's wonderful. I hear you about wanting to prevent further
Right,
deterioration, so there is the clock ticking
Yeah, there is.
on this.
There is, especially for the roof and the.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
We would like to have enough money to apply for those grants again this year. I do know that there is another group in Vermont that will probably apply for the DAR grant, and there's another group in Chittenden County that's probably going to apply for historic preservation money this year. So we're going to have some competition. Not to say that we can't go and that we might get it, but I know the DAR won't fund two projects in Vermont the same year, so.
And
If
I
not-
did see Scott Newman, who is the Preservation Trust, and he asked how we were coming, and I said, well, we were kind of at a standstill, but we're still working on it. And he said, keep persevering on it, because they want to see it repaired too.
Do they have ideas as to other things to
Well,
try?
they want us to apply for that grant, but we gotta have enough money behind us to apply for that grant.
Yeah.
That's a $20,000 grant.
Yeah. Or you have to have the
We have to have 50% for all these up front before we start to apply for them. Because they all have to be done within a year, so we have to have the money
Okay.
up front before we can apply for them.
Any other questions? A question for you. Will you have a table at the town meeting again this year like you did last year?
We can, we actually forgot it, we had our board meeting last week or the week before, and we kind of forgot about talking about it then, but we can, if you think it's worthwhile to do that again.
Yeah,
or-
you get a fair number of people to come through there that are obviously involved in the community. I would think they would be it would be, my guess is it'd be worth your while to have the table there again.
Patty still does that? Would let Patty know that we need a table? Probably,
Yeah,
Patty?
Susan McNamara Hill.
Okay.
Patty's the one in the village,
Patty, okay.
in the village.
I don't think it's too late to
No,
order those, right?
no.
Okay, and if you could also thank Will.
I will,
For the book,
yeah.
that's really, really
Yes.
cool to get that. We'll enjoy reading through that. So, again, what's the next big event
Well,
that
the
you're gonna?
mean our next public event?
Well, yeah, for fundraising.
Yeah, we haven't talked about any really big public events. Will has offered to host another open house over there if we can invite some of the major donors to come. But some kind of our problem for that is I don't know how to get to them. I don't, their phone numbers aren't listed, and, I don't know where they live, and, I know where one of them lives, but I can't stand on his doorstep and wait for him to come home, so. Probably wouldn't be the most beneficial thing for
Yeah.
getting money from
Yeah,
it.
stalking's probably not good.
Probably not a good thing, no.
But, yeah, so.
Okay. So again, we appreciate you coming in and giving us an update on that, and we really look forward to be able to move on this when you do have the funds. It is a piece of history that we don't want to lose. Yeah. So thanks for what you do.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Oh, sure.
Are you related to Justin and Meredith Clough?
No, not that I know of,
Okay,
but most of those Cloughs are related because there were 5 brothers that came over.
okay.
So they all, a lot of them went into Massachusetts, and that's where my husband was originally from, is in that area there.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye. Okay, we'll move on to business item 6D, which is a surplus computer equipment request. I think, Greg, you're going to cover this one?
I will, yes. So before Rick moved on to the police chief full-time, he managed to sneak in a few memos. One of them was the surplus computer equipment. You have the memo in front of you. The second page has a list of all the equipment, but basically there are several old Panasonic laptops, a few Apple laptops, and a couple of servers that are all out of date or no longer relevant to the town network. So Rick has asked that they be declared surplus and authorize your IT department to dispose of the same equipment in the most effective and efficient manner possible.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Questions about this one? Sue?
Curious why there was a directive that Apple computers are not permitted on the network.
It's mostly a security issue. They have different patches, different software that need to be kept up. And let's see, basically it's hard and it's expensive to secure Apple computers onto the Windows network that we have.
Surprising to me, Apple actually, I won't say it, but they do a very good job of maintaining their security and it gets pushed out, so.
Yep.
But,
Yeah,
obviously,
but
they have some reason that they've made that determination.
so I guess it's the software that they would use for Apple. They have to get it to be compatible with the Windows network and Windows software. They have to have the additional patches or whatever they need to do to keep the security. It's more expensive.
Other questions? So will the other departments, like the library, have an opportunity to see if there's computers that they could use?
I will pass that on to the IT department.
All right. So if there's no other questions, what's the board's pleasure? Or Mike?
Offer a motion if there's no other.
Well, we can have more discussion after the motion.
Okay. I move that the select board declare the attached list of computer equipment surplus, the attached list of computer equipment as surplus and authorize the IT department to dispose of the same in the most effective and efficient manner possible.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Irene. Any further discussion on declaring this list of computer hardware surplus? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you all. Okay, we're gonna move on to business item 6E. And last time we spoke about this, I recused myself because I have a close professional working relationship with the property owner that abuts this land. So I will pass the gavel over to Mike Plagueman to do 6E. So I'll head out. And if
So, is there, I guess there's no one here to present.
It's me.
That's you.
Yep.
So, go for it. Greg.
Sure. So this is following up from an issue you saw last in November, and at that time, the Hortons are a couple who split their time down between Massachusetts and Vermont, but they own about 50 acres at the end of Sleepy Hollow Road. As they're approaching retirement, they're looking to donate that land. They're conservation minded and have offered it to the town with the condition that it be preserved in perpetuity for recreation conservation purposes. Back in November, the select board expressed interest in that, wrote a letter to the Hortons saying as much. Since then, the attorneys for the Horton have drawn up some deeds and done their research, and the town attorney has reviewed that as well, and the offer is now formally being made, and the town has an opportunity to take over this property.
questions of staff? Just for curiosity's sake, what's the timetable if we move this forward tonight?
Days to a couple weeks. The Hortons are trying to move this along for tax purposes.
Yeah.
So it's, I think by mid-February is when they have to get it done.
Okay.
Would you like a motion?
Would you like a motion?
Go ahead. Sue had her hand up.
All right. I'll make a motion that the select board accept the land donation from the Hortons and authorize the municipal manager to sign any documents necessary to consummate the transaction.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the land offered by the Hortons. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 401, I believe. Sorry,
Great. Thank you.
thank you. Oh, what a nasty thing to say.
Thank you for doing that, Mike. Appreciate it. Okay, so now we're on to business item 6F. And that's, let's get to there.
Thank you, Greg.
Okay, that's for the warning of the 2018 town meeting, so. Okay. All right, so we all have a copy of the warning. Comments, questions, any surprises on there?
Has it been duly edited?
And it has the 14,299,932 on there.
What was the number we had in question
116.
before?
There was
The increase from last year.
951. 595193 is the number, right?
So the sort of official looking memo thing with the crest on the top that had the wrong number on it? Is that what we're?
Yeah.
Does that document need to be corrected? Does that thing go in?
That was the hearing for tonight.
Oh, that was the hearing notice for tonight. Okay. So there's no sense to correct that. Okay.
Okay, so,
I guess, yeah, comments on the budget. I'm still concerned about the amount we're asking for, and I'll explain why. The state of Vermont has already said that there's, and I've heard two different numbers, whether it's 8 cents or 8% school tax increase expected this year. Changes to federal tax code have made local taxes more expensive for those that itemize, or at least in the state of Vermont, very likely for folks who both own property and work. It's if the sum of those two numbers of your state income tax and your property tax exceed $10,000, you'll have less deduction opportunity going forward. So each dollar we add is more expensive than they used to be to people. My other concern is that we haven't given all the fund balance back. We've already had that discussion. So I'm concerned that the budget's higher than it should be, given these other externalities that are also driving up taxes for folks. I'd like to give back more of the fund balance. I'd like to cut more out of the budget, but
I just want to correct the amount above 15% that was unassigned has been given back.
I didn't say this evening that we are violating our policy. It's just, if we ever try to divert that money to something else, then I'll raise that ruckus. But I'm still saying that I still contend that, given the circumstances of the school tax going up, the federal tax code changes, that we do have an opportunity to provide some tax relief this year, and I understand it's a temporary thing. And I also understand that we've said for many years that doing this, giving back money out of the fund balance every year is a bad idea, and that we ought to cut ourselves off from that by giving it all back. I've said that once before already, but anyway, I'm not happy with the budget, so just wanted to say that.
But the budget represents what we collectively came to in order to provide at least the same level of service that the people have been accustomed to. And that, I think, is our responsibility and that's why we went, and it needs to be affordable. We went through that process, and I think it was a wonderful discussion we had. A lot of people wanted some things, and there was good give and take. Not everybody got everything they were trying to cut out, and I think the board functioned in a really great way to get where we are. And now, having come up with a budget that says this is really what's needed to run our town, and then at town meeting, the people can say yay or nay, and if they say nay, then some services will likely need to be decreased somehow, and that's certainly their choice. But I think this is a very responsible budget to say, in order to maintain the same level of service, this is what we feel it takes to do that, and there's not a contingency built in at all. We follow the fund balance policy as defined. Yeah, Andy?
To counter some of what you just said, for the last 3 years, we've averaged we've typically been underspent by $423,000 a year. That's the average for the last 3 years. The average for the last 6 years is that we've been underspent by $307,000 a year. So I think there's fat, and there's definitely some fat in the budget, and that we're asking for more than we ought to. And
I don't think that represents fat. That represents good fiscal responsibility, where they're not spending where they don't need.
So I don't agree then that we would, if we were to take another 100 or 200 out of the budget, or give back more fund balance, that we would hurt any services, given the last 6 years of.
You wouldn't know that until that year is up, though.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I know.
And to take it out now and just hope is not good practice, in my book. I think I saw Pat, and then we'll come to Sue.
I was gonna say that, to call ending the year in the black fat is a mischaracterization. It's not fat. Fat means that you built in something that you knowingly know you're not going to expend. That's wrong. We don't
You're
do
right.
that.
I'm sorry. That's an incorrect.
Thank you very much.
Sue?
I was just gonna add, I think Dennis, in a very logical way, presented that money would have been spent if there wasn't poor weather, right? The wet weather in the spring pushed out construction. And then I also think we're at the mercy of Mother Nature for how much salt and sand and how much road crew has to go. So I think we have to plan for what we can plan for, and then some of it is out of our control.
Yeah. Other comments?
I guess I would just add to what Sue just said, and I look to the federal tax changes. Aside from the voting booth, we have absolutely no control over that whatsoever. Neither do we have any control over school budgets. And I think it's our charge to be as fiscally responsible and provide for the public safety with what we can control. And this budget we can control, and without belaboring points that we debated last week, I support this budget. I think it's a responsible budget.
Okay, so what's the board's pleasure on this warning?
I would make a motion that the select board approve and sign the warning for the 2018 town meeting.
Thank you, Irene. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Who got that one? Okay, any further discussion
Tandem there.
about approving and signing the warning for the 2018 town meeting?
Sorry,
Yes, go ahead.
one more comment. We are voting to warn, I just want to make clear that, right, that we're voting to approve the warning. We're not voting in support of the budget necessarily.
We'll be signing the budget. Right.
The answer to the question is yes. Your
Yes.
vote, the topic for this discussion is to approve the warning to go forward. The budget has already been approved 4-1 from the select board at your last meeting. It will be ultimately approved
At town meeting.
at town meeting, yeah.
Okay,
So this is just the
okay,
warning.
just want to, okay, so,
Not conflicting yourself is how I would best describe it.
yep, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. So I just want to make clear then that nobody's going to say that the board unanimously supported the budget.
No,
Which
you unanimously
I've heard said
supported
before.
the warning.
Okay, great, thank you.
The board supports the budget.
The board, yes, right, but the word unanimous should not be used, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to approve and sign, and we have a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the town meeting warning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Thank you all.
And I'll pass this around for signing.
Okay. Right, and then we're gonna move on to item 6, or is it 7, actually? 6H, approval of the minutes.
Oh, capital budget, 6G.
Oh, I'm sorry, yep, we're on 6G. Approval of a warning for public hearing, capital budget and plan, 2019 to 2023. Greg?
So you've seen the capital budget and the 5-year plan, and you've had a chance to ask questions of staff. Next step is to warn a public hearing and then hold the public hearing. So looking to have you warn it tonight to hold the public hearing in the capital budget and 5-year plan next Monday on the 5th.
Okay. Questions, comments about the capital plan, warning the hearing? Okay, I'll take a motion, please.
I move that the select board warn a public hearing for February 5th, 2018 at 7:05 PM for the purpose of soliciting comments on the FYE 2019 capital budget and 5-year plan.
Thank you, Irene. Do I have a second on that? Thank you, Mike. Okay, any further discussion on warning the public hearing on the capital plan for February 5th at 7:05? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that one passes 5-0 as well. All right, so now we're on to 6H, and that's the approval of the minutes. We have several sets to do, so I'll take a motion for the first set of December 18th, 2017.
I would move approval of the minutes of December 18th, 2017 with select board member corrections.
Marion, do I have a second? Okay, thank you, Sue. Let's start on page 1.
On
Sorry.
Good, okay, thank you. So that was Irene and Sue?
Yeah.
All right,
You good?
yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Sue.
So on row 47, where it says, she confirmed for Miss Cook that the liquor licensing manager would remain the same. My question was around, it was the manager who received the liquor control training? So can we just identify that? I don't know what liquor licensing manager tells me that that's the same person that actually went through the training.
I'm sorry.
Which line are you on?
47.
47?
Oh, you said 43, okay.
Oh, and actually, I think it's on 46 on the new one.
It's 46, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
So we had gotten these minutes before, and I had edited them before, so that's why we're off a line. So it's 46.
Yep,
Where-
I understood that he had said that.
It just references the liquor licensing manager, and I certainly didn't have that title in mind. What I was referencing was the manager who had received the liquor control training.
Okay.
Okay, Tim?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else on one? Page 2? Page 3? Maureen?
I'm gonna go with 2 if I could.
2,
Line
okay.
92, please. I think the town manager said that you had to be a contracting municipality to be part of the regional dispatch.
Okay, good catch.
And then 95 and 97, we mentioned the phrase at the end of 95, memorandum of agreement, but then we refer to it as an MOU, so I don't know. I don't know who, I think people were saying MOU, but it just looks weird that it doesn't have MOA on both 95 and 97, so I'll let you do whatever you want with that.
Page 3. Page 4. Irene?
I'm just one behind, sorry.
Page 3.
Also, because I printed them out before and all that stuff. All right, line 120, instead of 80%, it's a percentage of calls. I'm sure it was just hard to hear on the tape. And then 136 at the end, please insert the word regional efficiencies. Thanks.
Okay, and Mike, you have something on 3?
No, I'm full.
Okay. Page 4. Mike, go ahead.
Sarah Michelle, on line 171, Mr. Plegman replied that very respectfully, not respectively.
Okay.
And then to continue on with that same question, or that same sentence, excuse me, it should read, Mr. Plegman replied very respectfully that the members testifying here tonight have over 50 years of police experience, telling them that there were several unanswered questions.
Okay.
And then on 175, same thing, respectively, respectfully, not respectively.
Okay, anything else on 4 from anybody? Page 5. All right.
On line 20, please, I'd like to add the word more before sensitive. Line 223, inserting the words last 2 before Vermont and then an S on governor. And then 231, at the very end, Mr. Scheidel agreed, comma, provided no time frame was specified. I think that was the big issue with this, right? We didn't want to say that we'd have an annual training or something.
Right.
Anything else on 5? 6? All right.
On 256, I think instead of to change a motion, it should say to change previously approved minutes.
Okay,
That's what I saw on the tape.
got it.
I think that complies with what you said, Max.
Okay, page 7. Page 8. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I'm on the next. Where the heck am I?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I went to the next one, sorry. I jumped forward. My bad. Let me get back. Okay, so, yeah, nothing on 7? Okay. All those in favor of the December 18th, 2017 minutes with select board corrections signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. And I'll take a motion for January 2nd, 2018 select board
I would
minutes.
move approval of the select board minutes of January 2nd, 2018, with select board member corrections.
Okay, do I have a second? Sue, okay, we'll start on page 1. Maureen?
On line 24, please, I'd just like to insert before the he, regarding the common level of appraisal, CLA in parentheses, he explained for Ms. Cook. I think we need to set the stage here, what we're talking about.
Anything else on 1? Page 2. Maureen?
On 54, please, comma after read in the middle of the sentence, cross off the and say, but noted a decrease in the number of children's programs offered.
Okay.
Oh, thought there were more. Okay.
On 69, did I really say this? Mr. Levy explained that the town is now moving towards IT being in individual budgets.
Oh, whoops, that's, Mr.
Gary?
Gary.
Okay, thank you for fixing that.
Somebody said I don't.
Anything else on 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 4? And 5? 6? All right.
Line 273, please, near the end, right before the word introduced, not native, but introduced. Plants, because she's talking about like invasives, but I just want to make sure for the readers in the future what they know what we're talking about here.
Anything else on 6? 7? 8? 9? And 10. Okay, all those in favor of the January 2nd?
Greg's got it.
Oh, sorry.
I believe that was Mr. Gary was the one explaining the town's moving towards IT budget. I don't think he was there, and I'm pretty sure that was me.
Oh, we'll give it to you.
Yeah, that was you.
We'll give it to you.
I don't want to put Rick somewhere that he wasn't.
Yeah, you're right.
Sounds
That was you. He
All right.
joined later,
All right.
when he was here.
Some guy said.
Yeah,
No.
that
Yeah.
works fine.
He said it probably later, but not that early in the month.
Drop into the
Table full
meeting.
of ventriloquists.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So all those in favor of the January 2nd, 2018 Select Board minutes with corrections signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. And I need another motion for the January 4th, 2018 Select Board minutes.
I move approval of the January 4th, 2018 Select Board minutes with Select Board member corrections.
Okay, and, thank you, Sue. Okay, we'll go on page 1. Sue?
Line 30, he joined the department in the summer and currently works on the sideway file. I think it's a sidewalk.
Okay.
Sidewalk.
Catch.
Sidewalk.
All right. Page 2.
It's something out of the New Yorker, isn't it?
Page 3. Irene?
Line 117, please, if we could put a comma at the very end of the line and say, now listed separately, comma. So we understand why I'm trying to combine them.
Okay, let's see, and I'm looking at line 109. Again, Mr. Levy asked if the issue could be corrected in the budget. We were talking about the, what were we talking about? I said village highway budgets reimbursed by the village. Was it incorrect in the budget? I don't think it was, right? It was. So, I don't recall saying that in line.
Should we take it off?
Yeah, can we strike that
The last sentence.
from that last sentence in 109?
There was a discussion here, because I raised this question about, if my name's right there in the beginning of the paragraph. I asked how often it's used, and I asked how it was paid for, and we had the discussion about, having the village pay their share, which means they pay double, or not double, but twice, 2 different portions. And I think
So is
that
the
was what your
bookkeeping?
request was whether it could all be paid out of the town budget instead of the village, but I don't know if it's, at this point. But that's what the discussion was here.
Okay, I don't know if I recall saying that. If it's okay with you, I'd like to just strike that.
We'll talk about it again next year, I'm sure.
Yeah. Okay, page 4. Irene?
On 151, Sam, I just changed the spelling of that because it's a registered trademark and I looked it up online.
Okay.
So
Which-
it's like initial caps and it's one word. It's clear lane, the first,
Which line's that?
151, that first phrase, clear lane.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look that up too.
Okay, on 160, it starts that Mr. Levy praised Ms. Costandi for coming to his neighborhood to explain. Actually, she offered to come. I just didn't take her up on it. So if we could change coming to offer to come, that would be good. Thank you. Anything else on 4? Page 5? Okay, all those in favor of the January 4th, 2018 Select Board minutes with corrections signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0.
I move approval of the January 8th minutes for the select board, 2018 with select board member corrections.
How about a second on that one?
Second,
Sue, okay, let's start on page 1. And page 2. Sue.
so, row 54, which the sentence starts on row 53. He told Ms. Cook that he estimated that this fund should have $250,000 and that it should be funded annually at $250,000.
Okay. Anything else on 2? Page 3. 4. 5. 6. Okay. All those in favor of the January 8th, 2018 Select Board minutes with Select Board comments signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Move approval of the select board minutes of January 15th, 2018. The select board minutes.
Irene, and
Second.
thanks, Sue. Okay, we'll start with page 1. Irene?
So, Rick Gary was here in his capacity as the IT guy, but can we just call him the chief anyway in number 8?
Sure.
Yeah, when did he become? What date was it?
13.
Okay, yeah. Okay, page 2. And 3. Irene?
I don't want to put words in Andy's mouth, but I think on line 121 it's plural projects, because it's projects at Towers Road and at Pinecrest Drive.
Okay.
Does that work for you, Andy?
I was not at this meeting, so I did not say any of that.
That was, just everything that maps the questions.
Yes, he was reporting your questions.
Right, yes. Oh, sorry, then I guess I better listen to the question again. What was the?
I want to add an S to project because there's 2 different sidewalk projects at Towers Road and Pinecrest doesn't intersect with it, so
Yes,
I presume that those
yes.
are 2 projects, right?
Yes.
And then should I say the money for these projects?
Yeah, it should be consistent.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, anything else on 3? Page, all right, Andy, on 3?
Here's where I gotta indicate that I was not here. Line 153, at the end, it says that Mr. Watts agreed. I
Oh,
can't,
whoops.
I can't offer a correction because I wasn't here. Just strike that if you want.
Yeah, I'll just take it.
Okay.
But you would have if you were here.
Anything else on 4? Page 5?
I thought Mr. Gary.
And
Yeah.
I think 6 is redundant, so, okay, all those in favor? Oh,
Just one point of discussion.
Sure.
Because I wasn't at this meeting, I'm.
vote for it if you like, or you can
I
abstain.
can if I'd like, but my practice has been to abstain, and I think I need to say ahead of time that why I'm going to
Correct.
abstain before I do.
Doing it. Okay, all those in favor of the January 15th, 2018 minutes with Select Board corrections signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining?
Here.
Oh, okay. So motion passes 4-0-1.
0-1.
Okay. All right, now I would like a motion to approve consent agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Irene. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, comments about consent agenda? Andy's got one.
So for the item J, the memo to the select board with schedule for upcoming meetings for February 13, joint meeting with the trustees, do we have any idea what kind of agenda we'll have there? Is it just further discussion about governance, or is it?
I believe it's about governance and talking about how you want to organize the meeting on the 24th. I have to dig through the notes and the minutes to finalize that agenda, but it's my memory is that it's kind of preparing for the meeting on March 24th.
And
Irene.
At the last time we had the last meeting we had with the joint trustees, they suggested that we work on something as a group before we came back to them, and I don't know that we've talked as a group about
what was
the
the
issue
thing?
of representation, for example, for our constituents who aren't in the village. George Tyler pointed us back to saying, don't discuss this here, discuss it on your own time. So we have not made time to do that yet, so I think we should do that pretty soon.
Yeah, there may be a manager's report for that meeting as well. So it wouldn't be a very long report, but it would be a report.
Okay.
That is for both boards.
Sue.
I was just gonna comment on the letter that we got from Ramona Shepherd on governance and transparency. And I think she very articulately lays out the situation, and I think removing the politics and the emotion, that if we just talk about when we meet with the trustees, that there are 10 people sitting at the table, and all 10 are representing the village, but only 5 are representing the town outside the village. And I do think that that's an inequity, and I agree with her suggestion.
Okay, so that's what Irene was saying, that we should have that be, requesting that to be a topic for, would have to be a meeting coming up pretty quick. Right. I guess that'd be the 5th, or so, yeah. Pardon?
So I'm responding to your body language. What was your, did you have a question?
No, I was thinking.
Okay, got it.
Okay, other comments on the consent agenda? Andy?
Maybe we added it this evening, the schedule of outreach
Yeah, that's,
things. So is the first one tomorrow?
yes.
Do we have the materials to hand out?
And we have the budget one, and we'll have the conservation one, right?
Yep. And those were both emailed to you over the weekend. I gave you updated copies today with a few more edits. Mostly grammatical formatting stuff, the conservation question. I added 2 more questions that you hadn't seen until tonight. Sam has my copy, but one of them was asking about what happens to the tax rolls if money's conserved, and the other one asks if there'd be upward pressure on development heights, and answers to those questions. Give the Q&As for that.
But the copies that we got still have the,
Those ones are correct. Those are the most recent versions that we
right,
have.
but if Andy's gonna be representing
That's my,
us,
gonna be my next question is, right, how do I get
he
clean
needs like a
copies?
final copy.
Oh, I'll have clean copies for you tomorrow. I just wanted you to see the changes for tonight, so in case you had comments. I also have plans to do a Q&A about the firefighter alignment, and one about why the town is not, residents are not being asked to vote on the regional dispatch. So I haven't had time to do those 2 yet, but I'm also working on those.
Yeah, and we don't have to delay the one tomorrow for those. We'll just, as they become available, we can just start giving them, okay? So, at your place, you have an updated, outreach plan, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I'm not available on the 1st. I'm actually gonna be out of town. But I could take that, I could cover the one on, February 10th instead, and that will leave open two of them then, this coming Thursday and this coming Saturday. So is there anyone willing, I don't know, Mike, if you had a chance to look at it?
Yeah.
Thursday, I'm out of town myself.
I think the first is what, this Thursday,
This Thursday,
right?
yeah.
2 days after tomorrow. I think I can do that, I think.
And what about Saturday for the girls varsity ice hockey at 4:30 on Saturday on the 3rd? I'm still out of town.
That's a UVM hockey night.
It's 4:30. I mean, so
4:30 is puck drop, right?
yeah. So we
So-
get there about 4,
Yeah.
and you leave by 4:30.
Yeah. Yeah, you can mark me down for that one. I'll do the
Okay.
first and the third.
Okay, super. So the changes we made then was for February 1st, instead of me, it'll be Mike, and for February 3rd, Mike will cover that, and I'll cover February 10th. And then we have at least one person at them, each one, which is great, thank you. I would propose, would it be okay to contact you, Greg, about getting the stack ready and just coordinate with him about where you pick them up? Sue?
I was gonna ask, can you bring a stack to next Monday night's meeting?
Sure. Which meeting?
Don't we have a meeting next Monday?
Yeah.
We do, the 5th, yeah.
So I know that won't help for the ones that are before the 5th,
Okay, yeah,
but
then we,
it'll help for all the rest of them.
okay. Very good.
You make them fun colors too.
Ken?
There is a possibility I may have to miss the meeting on the 5th. I don't know yet, but there is a possibility that I might have to go to that situation.
Okay. Will you be able to dial in, do you think, or will you just not be available at all?
I'm not sure that I'm gonna be available at all. I would prefer to try and dial in.
Okay.
But it's very gray right now. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
there is that possibility.
All right. Appreciate the heads up and just let us know, for sure when
I
you,
will.
when you get closer. Okay.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome. Thank you for people stepping up and signing it. Appreciate it. Yeah, I will. Any other items on consent? Did everybody get invited to the Blue Spruce Grange to attend that? So if we have 3 or more going, I think the law says you gotta warn it, because we're actually not gonna be making policy or making decisions, but we will be talking about town business. And I think,
If you could,
Yeah.
if you could tell Travis if you plan to attend, and that way you can keep track and warn it if need be.
okay? Everybody-
24-hour notice, so the sooner the better.
Okay, so as soon as you know, let them know.
I'm leaning toward going strongly.
Yeah, I already responded and said I would go.
And I'm going, so there you go.
Let's warn
There
it.
you go. All right, good to know.
Okay.
In advance, thank you all. All right, anything else? All right, hearing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes 5-0. Okay, thank you, Mike, thank you, Sue. Any further discussion about adjourning? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're done. Thank you all very much for